Kings Island's finally done it. At long last, we know that they will be receiving their Giga coaster. People have been wanting a Giga at Kings Island for ages, and we just got the official announcement that Orion will be opening in 2020. It'll be a B&M Giga coaster in the style of Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland or Fury 325 at Carowinds. This will be my official analysis based off of the information we know, and I'll be sharing my opinions and my opinions only. Because even though as of when this video is being released, the ride has only been announced for less than 24 hours, there are already lots of opinions on this thing, and not all are good. So before I really get into this, I want to specify, any opinions shared in this video are preliminary. Obviously, no one has written it yet. Anything I say is based off of the information and animation that we currently have. These opinions will change. That'll most likely happen after the coaster is officially built, we have a POV out, but most importantly, after we physically ride it, because that is really the only true way to have an accurate opinion on the ride. These are just my initial reactions. So now that we have that over with, let's start off with breaking it down with the stats. We have a height of 287 feet, a first drop of 300 feet. The length of that first drop is 447 feet. That right there tells you that this will not be a vertical drop, probably more along the lines of 80 degrees or even possibly in the late 70s. An angle of descent has not been released, but probably the best way to judge that is just by looking at the animations and taking a ballpark guess, at least until the park officially announces what its angle of descent is. There's a track length of 5,321 feet. For those interested in knowing, that is not longer than Leviathan. Leviathan is longer by over 100 feet. So of course then, if it's not longer than Leviathan, it's definitely not longer than Fury, which is currently the longest steel coaster in North America. Our top speed is 91 miles per hour, and according to Kings Island, there are 8 hills. I personally disagree with that statement, but that's according to them. And the height of those hills are 174 feet as the first one, 202 feet the second one, then we have 56 feet, 147 feet, 125 feet, 90 feet, and 83 feet. So that right there should tell you something very important. Look how many of those hills are over 100 feet in the air. What that tells you is this is not one of those roller coasters that really stays low to the ground. If you look at Fury's layout, a lot of it lays really close to the ground, and that's where you feel that sense of speed. When you have a hill, you're going pretty fast at the bottom of it, but then when you get to the top, you're going to get that floater airtime feeling that B&M is very well known for. That means you're going slower at the top. So that should give you an idea of pacing. The pacing of this ride is going to be more along the lines of Leviathan or a B&M Hyper, maybe closer to Shambhala, but I would say do not expect the pacing that Fury has, because we do have a top speed of 91 miles per hour, but a lot of these hills are very drawn out, fairly high up, so you're just not going to get that low to the ground sensation, which in my opinion is a little unfortunate because I think Fury does it so well. Intimidator 305 is probably the king of it. Millennium Force is also known for it as well. So I think if there was anything in this ride that disappointed me even slightly, it probably would be that there aren't as many low to the ground moments. Because to me, that is what is going to be your biggest separator between this and Diamondback. Diamondback is all about those big parabolic hills, and so when this coaster also has a few of those moments, it makes it almost just a larger version of that, instead of being something completely different. Now, we do have a POV, and that gives you an idea of some of the specific elements that we're looking at. The first one that by far is my most anticipated part of the ride is that first element. I know I mentioned how I do wish that the ride stayed more low to the ground, but I really like the idea of this first element after the drop. It is almost this wave turn. This is 174 feet in the air, and right after you're going 91 miles per hour, you're gonna twist up and bank to the side. So you'll get some kind of sideways airtime, but I just think that is so cool because this is by far the largest of that kind of element that we have seen from B&M. So in my opinion, that seems more like B&M's way of trying to do something a little different, because so many of what B&M coasters do feels the exact same. That element to me feels more like they're branching out. I don't know if I can really say that for the rest of the ride, because after that we do have a turnaround. When I see that, it seems very similar to that first turn on Fury. And going back to what I was talking about earlier, how I disagree with the number of total hills Kings Island has listed, I don't classify that turnaround as a hill. But if that stat is good for anything, it does tell you that the top of that moment is 202 feet in the air. So you swoop down to the ground, you reach a fairly low moment, and then pop up into a speed hill. This speed hill is going to be pretty good. We know they'll be pretty good because B&M has done speed hills before, and they always are really fun. This one is 56 feet off the ground, and that is the lowest hill on the ride. Even the last hill is taller than this moment. So it's more stuff kind of like this that I wish the coaster had incorporated. Because right after that, we have a massive hill, 147 feet in the air. That's a big old floater hill. Right after that, we have a helix. Okay, that's an interesting element. I'm totally fine with helixes being on coasters, but I thought it was interesting that they put it right next to the lift hill and not at the very end of the ride. To me, what this helix looks exactly like is Shambhala's figure 8. You start low, rise up high, keep that height for a little bit, and then twist down to the bottom. And I know I probably shouldn't really be surprised that that has that. I mean, the blueprints for this ride were leaked ages ago. So none of this ride is a big surprise other than that wave turn. But I still think that was an interesting choice to put after that big old floater hill. So after that, you are going to drop underneath the first drop. And I just want to highlight this moment. That's a pretty good near miss. You're right in between the support holding up the bottom of the first drop and the bottom of the first drop. Not a huge amount of space, and you're going directly under it. So I think that is going to be a cool moment. And it's something that not very many people are talking about. So after that is going to twist up. And the first part of this turn starts off banked, and then you twist out. And personally, I'm not anticipating a ton of airtime in that moment because of the way it is shaped. You start off banked and then it twists down, but it doesn't even drop that much. So maybe if you're in the back, you'll get a little bit of airtime, but not a lot. And then that last element is half of an airtime hill. You pop up into the brake run. So you know how the end of Fury 325, you have all those small floater hills? Yeah, this coaster does not have that, which is fine. Again, this is not supposed to be Fury. It is supposed to be its own thing. The only reason why I draw comparisons to Fury and Leviathan is because those two coasters are Orion's sister rides. Those are all we have to compare it to because we know how those feel. So that just gives us a guess of what this coaster will feel like. And in true B&M Giga coaster fashion, the ride does have an obnoxiously long brake run. So that is Orion's layout. You start off in Firehawk's location, you go all the way back behind Racer's turnaround, and you just follow that path. Now, there is something that I did want to address, and that is the height and drop of this roller coaster. Something I really like is how the drop is bigger than the height. This is the first Giga coaster to do that, and that's because of the location of the first drop. It is on the side of a hill, so that gives you an idea of how they are using that terrain. This in no way is going to feel like a terrain coaster, but you are going to see some elevation changes. So I really do like how the drop is bigger than the height, and that is why this coaster is officially labeled as a Giga, because its drop is 300 feet, even though I always assumed that it was done by height and not drop. But personally, I don't think it really matters. But to me, what defines this as a Giga, aside from the fact that it has a 300-foot first drop, is the fact that the layout is very Giga-like. This is not a hypercoaster layout, even though the height is 287 feet. So while some people are calling this just a really tall hypercoaster, it is not going to feel exactly like a hypercoaster. The layout looks like a Giga, it's going to feel like a Giga, so as far as I'm concerned, it's a Giga. The last main thing I want to address regarding that is the question, why did they not go taller? And I think there's a few possible different answers here. The first one I'm going to discuss is my least favorite, and I really hope this isn't why they picked this height. However, something tells me it probably is, and that is because they did not want to upstage Millennium Force. Cedar Point is Cedar Fair's crown jewel. Millennium Force has been around for about 20 years. And in 20 years, they couldn't build a coaster just a little bit taller than it here at Kings Island? And the answer is no. It's because they still want Cedar Point to have the two tallest coasters in Ohio. I think it is incredibly stupid because we know that if Cedar Fair really wanted them to, they could have made this coaster taller. We know B&M would have been willing to make it taller. But because Cedar Point is in the same state, they aren't willing to upstage them. That is my first main theory and is my least favorite because I think that if that is the main reason why they didn't want to build it bigger, that is completely ridiculous. But there's also the possibility that the reason why they didn't want to build it bigger is because of land usage. You build it taller, you need more space. Or maybe money. That's more steel it would require to use. So if it's either of those things, then I could understand maybe why they did it this way. But I think that they probably could have worked around both of those things if they really wanted to. I think if Kings Island wanted to build a coaster better than Fury, they easily could have done so. But don't take that as me complaining, because I still think this is a great addition. Absolutely. Kings Island deserves a Giga. We're finally getting it. It is going to be a great fit. I love the location. I think the colors are beautiful. Definitely was hoping it would be called Polaris, but I think Orion is still a good name. One of the last main things I want to talk about is the theme that they're going with. They're redoing X-Space to call the area Area 72 in honor of the Kings Island opened in 1972. And the whole theme is that this ride is the latest prototype vehicle developed by the Project X initiative. Scientists are in a race against time to develop technology capable of weaving transport vehicles through a coming meteor storm and traveling to a new planet within the Orion constellation. For the program to be successful, it needs volunteers to help with testing, which is this roller coaster. It's a little bit of an obscure theme, but I do like that they're kind of going with that futuristic space kind of vibe. It fits really well with Flight of Fear being right there, and I'm really interested in seeing how they do this plaza and, of course, the big entrance sign, because Cedar Fair loves doing awesome entrance signs. One thing you can spot in the animation is you can see a van that has a big old satellite on it, so that might be in the plaza. You can actually see that they're reusing the old photo booth from Firehawk. They're just completely redoing it, making it look a lot nicer. Cedar Fair typically hasn't gone with theming things super well. Copperhead Strike is probably the best Cedar Fair themed coaster we'll see. I personally am not anticipating that level of theming with this ride, but the least they can do is make it look good, which I imagine they will because they always look super nice and they are presented well. So that's all I got for Orion at Kings Island. I want to hear from you guys what your thoughts are on this roller coaster. If you agree with my opinion, please remember these are just my initial thoughts. That very well could all change after I ride it. But if this is your first time to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. You can stay tuned for more analyses that I have coming. Anytime a new roller coaster is announced, I do one of these analyses. So stay tuned for more. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you next time.